continue our presentations today regarding communication. So if everyone can come back to your tables, I would really appreciate that. We did leave some information for you on the tables, so if you don't have information for this next presentation, please raise your hand and I will get that to you. Okay.
And we can pass it up.
They came in a packet of 3. Oh. Do you need one too? Oh, okay.
Here, we can pass them out while you introduce us. Do you want to do that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
You just need one.
Yeah, every family just needs one copy.
Just one copy.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Oh, we don't have a. Do you have another one? Oh, you do? Okay.
And yeah, it looks like we're passing them around.
Okay, great.
If
Do you have a
hold on to
pile
those
of
in the
them?
back- Yeah, that's a pile. So if you want to take them,
Okay.
then we can just pass them.
Great. All right. Okay, sorry about that. If anyone needs any additional information of the handouts, they are in that front table right there, so please feel free to go get them. Okay, so good morning again. Again, my name is Amy Gerard, for those of you that might be new to this room this morning. I live in New Hampshire with my husband, Chuck Crush, my daughter, Allison Gerard, who experiences Angelman syndrome. She's 13, and my son, Josh Gerard, who actually happens to be in college right now at Clark University. And we live in Concord, New Hampshire, and Allie has had an AAC device since she was probably about 3. And communication is a really important subject, very near and dear to my heart, because it has opened up so many doors for Allie, and it's just incredible. So I'm a really big advocate for children being able, or adults who can't communicate in other ways, to have appropriate means of communication, which is why I'm here today. I would like to continue to introduce our next speakers. We have Caroline Woeber and we have Erin Dolan, and they're going to talk about the how and the why of communication. Caroline, and again, I have to take off my glasses, sorry. Caroline earned a bachelor's degree in Spanish from the University of Florida and a master's degree in communication sciences and disorders from the University of Central Florida. Caroline worked as a speech therapist in the elementary school setting, several private practices in Florida and Colorado, and has been at Children's Hospital Colorado since 2016 as the Augmentative and Alternative Communication, or AAC, team lead for camps. Caroline organizes and runs AAC camps for children, families, and professionals who use speech-generating devices. Caroline is passionate about providing training and hands-on experience to communication partners in order to support the communication of individuals who use AAC. And I'd also like to introduce Erin Dolan. Erin wants to live in a world where everyone has a voice that is heard. Her desk has a fresh pile of chocolate on it every day, and that the unlock button on her car key also worked on her front door.
Yes.
Okay.
That would be really convenient.
Okay. With 12 years experience as a speech therapist, she has worked in school in clinical settings in the areas of AAC, autism, speech sound disorders, social skills, language, and literacy. Most recently, she has added Hanen parent education programs to her skill set and enjoys being a Hanen team lead, helping parents become their child's best therapist. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce both Caroline and Erin, and welcome to the FAST Conference for Educational Summit 2019. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, that was such a wonderful introduction. Thank you.
I know.
Well, let me bump back. All right, so I'm Caroline Woeber. I'm a speech therapist as I was just described. And I truly am passionate about working with children and families and really making sure that you feel the most successful when trying to communicate with your child and to promote your child's communication.
I would agree with that. And I'm Erin, and I'm also a speech therapist, and she aptly described me. And I second Caroline's notion that we really want to make you the best therapist for your kiddo. I learned a long, long time ago when I was in grad school that the best therapist works themselves out of a job. So I want you to be me down the road, and you don't need us anymore at some point. So
Absolutely. Can't wait to give you an honorary degree. Let's see if we can move this forward. Whoops. Okay. So just a couple financial and non-financial disclosures. We are both employees of Children's Hospital, and we had we're very fortunate to be supported to be here, so thank you so much. In addition, Kelly, David, and I went to the University of Central Florida together. I have known her family for many years now and have gotten to see Colin grow, which has just been so fantastic, and Maddie as well. So just wanted to share that with you all.
Okay, so today we have three main objectives for this first presentation. We want to make sure that you guys are really comfortable with various communication functions. So we're going to define some, we're going to go over them. We want to make sure that we are getting at what your child's interests are, because that's really what's motivating for communication. Ultimately, it's a good place, a launching place for any kind of communication learning, whether it's AAC or not, and then diving into understanding kind of those vocabulary needs that are match those functions.
All right, so when it comes to AAC, we have several different ways of thinking about it. We have two, first off, AAC, augmentative and alternative communication, is everything that we use to express ourselves without verbally saying it. So for instance, we have aided and unaided. Unaided is what we all use naturally and every day. We often use gestures to point like, oh, we're gonna go over here. That is something that we all do. In addition, sign language or signs can be a very powerful way of using unaided AAC, as well as body movements. I do not want that. We're leaning back, we're refusing that food or that object. So we naturally use these. Aided language is when we add something to our communication. So for us here, even taking notes with a pen, the pen is the tool, the AAC tool we're using to write down those notes. So any kind of drawings or written words is a form of AAC. But also objects, pictures, and then we can get into more technological things like electronic devices and speech generating devices. Specifically, speech generating devices are machines that can be tablets or computers that have recorded speech on them, and when you press a button, it says the word. And this can be defined by Medicaid and Medicare as durable medical equipment and can be funded by your insurance, potentially depending on your plan. So our focus, we're going to be using a lot of these terms today, but our presentation is going to focus mainly on AAC systems in general, with somewhat of a focus on speech generating devices. You might hear us using some of these words. And the focus of today's presentation is to really focus on why we communicate. And the term that we're going to use to reference this is communication functions.
Okay. So now we have an interactive portion. So we're going to get some information about you guys on what you already know about why we communicate. So Caroline is going to take us through a Mentimeter, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So if you can pull out your phones. Yes, we're technology people. We get technology going from the get-go. If you are not already connected to the internet or don't have Wi-Fi access because of where we are located in this building, you may want to jump on and use that. But what you're going to do is go to www.menti.com. And then once you get there, you're going to type in this code. And it's going to give you direct access to this slide presentation where you can enter in what you think, why we communicate. Does anybody not have internet access that needs directions for that? Okay. And then as soon as you are able to enter in a response, it's going to pop up here on the screen, as long as technology is on our side. Anybody? Oh, I need to activate it maybe. Whoops. You're voting? Oh, no.
The first slide is probably not.
The first slide isn't going.
Yeah, we're making forward.
Oh, no. That's the next hour. So then let's, for the sake of time.
No, they're doing anything. Slide is not active.
Well, I hit it and then it doesn't work.
I think you have to get out. of the-
Yeah, 1 second. So, and I think that this is always something that I bring up to families. Sometimes technology isn't on our side. And that's okay. Let's see if it works now.
If you hit go to slide on the top, it takes you to
Go to.
it works.
Oh, it does?
At the top of the screen, there was a button that said go to slide.
Oh, so you had to refresh on your app?
Yes, you hit that and it takes you to
Perfect. All right,
Okay.
so if you can go to your screen and it says go to slide, then you should be able to access it. Thank you for bringing that up. Something worked. Let's see. I'm not sure why I can't access this part though. All right. I don't see anything coming up though on our end. So if you want to raise your hand with something that you felt like you commented about why we communicate, that would be fantastic. Any takers?
I just entered something.
Okay.
I did interact. I entered something.
Let's see if I just go to the slide on Mentimeter.
Okay.
Oh, here we go. I'm just going to do this.
You can see it up there.
Okay. There we go. Excellent. So access basic needs is definitely an important reason why we communicate. Getting something we need, the ability to comprehend, I think that is such a powerful thing when it comes to communication. We have several modalities that we express ourselves, but then we also have our receptive language too. So we speak and we can write, but then that intrinsically then improves our ability to understand. So it all layers on itself, which is so, so wonderful. To interact and be isolated and not be isolated, absolutely. To express wants and needs, to connect to others, that social piece is so, so critical. Express, let's see, to get what you want, to get the stuff we need, relay thoughts and interactions. These are all fantastic. Love, I love that. That's so important. And to be able to express how we feel. Great. Thanks for being patient while I problem solved that. Let's see. Can I get back to the slide now? I don't know. All right, so now Erin is going to go through highlighting specifically some of these more jargon phrases that we say about why we communicate.
Yes. So I just used myself because I was not going to get any of my clients necessarily to cooperate for beautiful still pictures. So it's me and my husband. I made him help me. He got roped in, but he did get to eat some chocolate at the end, so he got rewarded. So anyway, it is just me, so it's not a cute kid. Sorry, guys. So I'm going to go through these communication functions, and I'll just kind of talk about. Why? There we go. Talk about each of them just briefly. So that first one, request. I want the chocolate. That's an important one. Requesting often is an early communication function. Caroline will kind of go over timelines, but it's an important one. But I will say right now, and we'll probably say this more than once, we don't want to get stuck just teaching requesting or just having kids request. If you could only request all day from here on out, you would be a very crabby person at the end of the day, okay? Because you couldn't comment, you couldn't protest, you couldn't ask a question. It would not be a great day for you. You'd be frustrated, and then you wouldn't like me, and I want you to be my friend.
And probably not a great conversation.
Not a great conversation. If all you said was, I want chocolate, I want chocolate, I want chocolate. And a protest, also a really important one, an early one. No more, I'm full, or I don't want that, or I'm all done, or stop, please. Those are all appropriate protests. Direction, also a really key one early on. Actually, I like to teach this one a lot early. It gives kids, or just anyone, a lot of power, and sometimes that really helps motivate them. So put the chocolate here, or up, or down, under, those kind of words. Comment, yummy, or I like this, or I don't like this. That'd be another way to comment on that. And then in that bottom corner, you can see I've got I'm holding up a chocolate and I've got a thumbs up, sharing information. This is kind of related to a comment, and comments and sharing information they overlap and they can be related, but it's a little more specific. It's something you might have not necessarily gathered before I said it. So I specifically like dark chocolate. Not just any chocolate. I mean, I'll accept any chocolate if you're going to offer a chocolate, but if you really want to get on my good side, the fresh pile would need to be the dark chocolate. Okay, just putting that out there. So that would be specific information. And then requesting information. This is basically asking a question, gaining knowledge about something that you really want to know. So where's the chocolate? Where did you put it? I need that. Or, where's mama? When are we leaving? What time is it? All of those are just requests for information. Then we've got gaining attention. Hey there, I see you have the chocolate. And this can be done, with words, and I'll kind of go over the next slide too, or just with gestures too, like. And then that last one on the corner, social routine. So these are all the things that kind of fit in there. The hi, how are you, thank you, you're welcome, please. Things that we do that we know consist of those routines that we commonly do throughout our day. So, do those make sense? I'm going to dive into a little bit more. Okay. So, I just really like these. We pulled two of these from the Virginia Commonwealth University, and specifically the Autism Center for Excellence made this beautiful chart, and we just really liked it, so we thought we referenced them and everything, but I liked how they laid it out. They have 13 functions that they've defined. They give the function, they explain it really well, and then they give examples all the way from nonverbal examples all the way to using what we would consider, expected verbal language, and I just think it's a nice hierarchy for anyone that's wanting to dive into understanding those language functions better, or reviewing it and making sure, am I teaching enough language functions to my kiddos? Because I review them, my own teaching frequently to make sure that I'm really being robust with what I'm teaching. We put requests on here because like I said, that's an early language function that is learned. Then I also did getting attention too. That's an important one. We kind of put this one in there because I'm guessing that you've all experienced someone in your life getting attention in maybe a non-preferred way. And so we like to highlight getting attention as something that we want to expressly teach, but not teach in the way that's programmed, they just get attention in certain ways, but an authentic, naturalistic way so that they can get anyone's attention at any time without using a behavior. So we think it's an important one because they're going to go into schools or they're going to go other places, and we want them to be able to be, kind of socially appropriate on some level and expected, and so we like to help kids learn how to do that too.
So then when should we be teaching some of these things? And the answer is we really should be working on all of these communications pretty early on. When thinking about teaching a child how to communicate with signs and pictures and words or speech-generating device, it's important that we look at what a child is expected to do naturally. So just like how a child learns to say one word and then adds words over time, we're going to have the same expectation of our kids with Angelman syndrome. So a child that learns, and we're going to assume the same thing with communication functions, that a child will then express requesting, but then in addition will quickly be learning how to refuse and greet around the same time. So if you look at these charts, I have 3 sections. Between the ages of 12 and 18 months, a child learns to request, protest, and greet very early on. So they learn cookie very quickly. They learn, or ball maybe. They may also learn no or hi, bye, because those are all very socially motivating and getting wants and needs met. And then after that, we have commenting and requesting, which will develop between the 18 and 24 month range. And social words will be developing between about 12 and 24 months, just depending. And so when we look at these, we're going to be expecting our children to be developing all of these around the same time. And it's important then, excuse me, I'm getting lost. While yes, teaching our children how to express their basic wants and needs is critical to their motivation and success, it is also important that we teach these other functions as well. And this means that while your child may not be immediately expressing yucky or yay, you can still be modeling this communication and showing your child how to access this so that they are developmentally meeting their marks a little bit closer. And likewise, when we look at 24 to 36 months, we have kids developing ways to joke and tease, ways to ask and answer ask and answer what, where, and who questions, as well as clarify, like, ooh, say that again, or trying to repeat themselves. And these are all developed before the age of 3. So looking for your kids then to then really be pushing and modeling these next set of functions is so critical to their overall development and not getting stuck on just requesting. So in summary, why do we communicate? Because, as aptly mentioned before, we have a human right to do so. We have our human right to express our thoughts, opinions, feelings, and so much more. We have so much more to say than just request. And a popular quote amongst the AAC community is, just because I don't speak doesn't mean I don't have anything to say. And this is so huge because we all have something to say. We just may not be able to say it the same way. So now, because we just talked for a really long time, we want to make this a little bit more interactive. We have handed out some sheets of paper. If you can make sure that it says the real estate game at the top, we'll be referencing this. And our objective here is to identify the relationship between motivation and communication. Does anyone not have the handout? All right, would you be able to grab a few and pass those out for me, Amy? Thank you. Keep your hands up and we'll have some brought to you. All right. So in our real estate game, we are going to dream up our most dream perfect town, my Barbie dream house, everything that I would want in it. And I'd love for you to dream up the same for your town. And this will tie back to communication, but I want you to think about what your specific place in town would look like. Maybe work with your spouse or significant other, family member, anybody that you brought with you if you'd like to make your own dream, for your village. And we're first going to start with just making a list. And if I were to put something in my town, it would be a coffee shop. I love coffee. I love the fact that coffee shops bring people together to talk and hang out. And I just really love coffee. So that would be my dream town. Erin, what would you have in yours?
Target. I love Target. It's my happy place. I go there after work sometimes and just walk around. I'm not even kidding. I really like Target a lot. So there would have to be a Target. And probably, we're from Colorado, so probably a mountain area for hiking. We're very outdoorsy there. And so those are 2 big ones for me. But I'll let you guys think of what makes sense for you. And so make a list and we'll give you a few minutes and we'll pull you back in.
Yeah, and we might even just circle around and see what you're doing. So just pretend like you're writing or something.
Yeah.
All right, I see some great things coming along. We do have a question that I was going to address. I'm going to get to that after we finish this activity, but it does go back to one of the questions related to the progression of communication functions. So we will be coming back to answer and clarify some things from there. When it comes to the real estate game, now we have the next challenge. You get to build your dream town. With the other half of your worksheet, you have this beautiful map. This is an activity we do with families often in Colorado. And so I would love for you, we have some examples to share from there, but I'd love for you to go ahead and just fill out if you want to put in numbers or associated with your list, or just write in the word, that's fine too. But just take a few moments to map out your town, where you want things to be, and add pizzazz. So add things that would make your town unique in the way you would like to see it run. right, we're going to give you about 2 more minutes. We're going to swing on by, and then we're going to reveal what some towns have looked like. All right, so when we look at our plans, our cities, again, I said that we do this at camp, and so we have a comparison. This was just taken from our fall First Steps camp. We have 2 families that were generous enough to share what they made, and here we have Julipalooza and Legacy, the towns. And to me, they look strikingly different. We have one that's pretty much all black and white. And if you're at camp, I would have given you some colors and papers and things like that to really jazz it up. So that's where Legacy has much more colors. And if you look at the map, here we have on the left-hand side, Julipalooza has a King Soopers, which is a local Colorado grocery chain. She has, looks like some outdoor and water park areas. She has a farm, whereas Legacy has gone ahead and added mountains, added ponds. They have the football stadium, which you should have seen this dad. He was decked out head to toe, blue and orange for the Denver Broncos. They have the hospital right next door. They have all their favorite things really close by. You ready?
Yeah.
Ready? Okay. So then we want to know what your towns look like, just by a raise of hands. Who has a lot of buildings? You filled in every single one of those buildings on your block. Excellent. Maybe who just filled in a couple? They didn't have a fully robust town. Yeah? Fantastic. Wonderful. So when we think about this, this could be rural versus urban environments. Some people really prefer the country, whereas some really prefer the city, and that's more than fine. And we can think of this too as our children's devices. So looking at the vocabulary, or maybe if you're using a PEC system, the difference between 5 pictures on a screen or 5 pictures within the PEC's book versus maybe 100 pictures and lots of layers of pictures. And this just depends on what your child is visually able to attend to. Maybe they need a fewer pictures to be able to choose what they really want, or motor planning wise, they just need fewer options so that they can access truly what they want to say. And likewise, other kids can handle much larger. It really needs to be customized to the child. And just like you, customized to what your interests and preferences are. Oh, there we go. Oh, sorry.
That's okay. We are dealing with the animation of this slide. Anyway, did anyone else add a Target like me, or a Walmart, or I can't think of anything else off the top of my head of like regionally what other stores might exist, so I apologize. This kind of has to do with generic vocabulary versus more specific, which our next presentation will get into that as well. But you know, a Target, you can get the chocolate at Target. You might have to buy shoes while you're there.
There is a coffee
You
shop.
might need to go to the dollar area and get stickers. You just don't know what you're going to need till you get there, but they have everything, so it's fine. So in relation to a device or a system, whether it's high or low tech, because I know we tend high tech, but we also do a lot of low tech, so don't ever think that we're not including that with what we share with you guys. You know, you can get a lot of bang for your buck if you have some pretty like generic words like go, stop, more, like, eat, drink. There's a lot you can do with that set of words in your day.
Okay. Did anybody draw anything? Fantastic. Wonderful. Maybe you drew something after you saw the picture of the example. That's more than fine. Did anybody draw any roads or add any kind of transportation? Wonderful. So these are two different examples here. We have multimodality communication. So as I mentioned before, with the aided and the unaided augmentative and alternative communication, we want to accept it all. Any way that your child is trying to communicate, and any way that you want to communicate, we want to honor. Again, it goes back to that basic right. So we want to accept those drawings. We want to accept any of those additions in addition to the talker, or in addition to the pictures on the device. So you may see some devices have the option of a picture and being able to put different hotspots on the picture, or places where we circle specifically. So if you have like a scene of, for me, it would be like a coffee with sugar and milk. I'm probably going to have a circle around the coffee that says, I like coffee, and then maybe a circle around the sugar and the milk that says more milk, more sugar, because I really like my coffee with, or my milk and sugar with coffee. In addition, when we have the navigation, that would be similar to your roads. It's not really appropriate for me to talk about coffee all the time. Excuse me, I should go back to the multimodality. So we're going to accept everything that a child has to say, and there's various ways to put that. So then with the navigation, it's not appropriate for me to talk about coffee all the time, and I realize that. So I need ways of getting out of that communication to be able to talk about things that are appropriate and, in general, what everyone else is kind of communicating for topic maintenance. So having then on that same page with the coffee, probably like an exit or a go back button would be really critical, or just even being able to flip to another page would be really critical for being appropriate in conversation. So just always thinking about that, having one of those kinds of buttons on your child's device.
Okay, did you guys, oops, let me get closer. Did you guys, it looks like you guys are kind of working together, or maybe you were, I like to say it this way, drawing inspiration from your table partners, AKA eavesdropping, because I think that's also a great way to get ideas of what to put in your town, your device. I walked around and said, I don't even know, 8 times, oh, yeah, I should think about putting that in my town too. There was a beach, Trader Joe's I forgot about. Someone added Trader Joe's and IKEA because she really wants it in her town. She doesn't live someplace where those exist, so she's like, I'm gonna make this awesome. So looking at peers and other ideas is really appropriate, and it's really appropriate for AAC as well. And that kind of gets at that peer modeling. When we teach devices or even just systems, sometimes using siblings as a model or other really motivated peers can be extremely helpful, because as engaging and as awesome as I think I am, I'm not a peer and I'm not a kid, and I'm just not someone's, perfect play partner. So, but a peer might be, so something to think about.
And I just want to make sure on time-wise, this countdown is saying we have 1 minute left, but we're going to 10:50, right? Yeah. Okay, perfect. Thought we had a lot to fit in 1 minute. And then the last takeaway from this activity of building your own town is, did anyone group some of their favorite places, or for convenience factor, put certain buildings next to each other, fantastic, yes. And that is so critical because we can think about on a talker or in your child's communication book that we may organize things by category or by preference, and we may think about putting those locations easy for them to access if we're really wanting to motivate them, or if we're really working on having your child reach to a new quadrant, maybe we put that most exciting object up in that corner so that they're really reaching for that and building more skill for that. So we can really think strategically about how we organize the devices or books, and we can really think about what kind of skills we develop that way too. So then, thinking about your specific child.
Yeah. So this is kind of an example to kind of draw the ideas of function and what we just did with the real estate game together. So this is how it all ties together. So I had a lovely angel that I worked with, and he preferred water activities over anything I could ever come up with. That's what he wanted to do. He loved it. But we can't play in the sink at school all day long. That's really not we can't learn everything there. So I would prepare other things. He was in a group, and we had lots of language activities and different crafts and things so that we could kind of expand. Now, he would participate in the crafts, and he, of course, enjoyed that, and I could get communication, and he would communicate. But I would say that I had a much more robust time if I was able to teach within a water activity. I got way more language functions out of him because it's so motivating. So we're going to request, we're going to protest, we're going to comment, and it's not that we just use those highly preferred to all the time. It's that we kind of, if we're going to maybe teach a new language function that might be more challenging, or we're going to introduce something, we might go to something that's more preferred so that they stay motivated and interest, and that's kind of what we're getting at. And so for him, his real estate, that water page would probably be off of a home page. We don't want it to be the thing he opens up and requests all the time, or you're gonna have to be that mean person all the time that's denying, a highly preferred, which we also don't want to have to be mean all the time, just sometimes. So it probably would be something that he could easily navigate to within 1 to 2 hits, or, maybe he's got his picture symbols on one page, and maybe that next interest page is that water play. Does that make sense? So that's kind of how they're tied together. So when we think about the real estate, we also are thinking about language functions and navigation that all kind of overlaps together. So.
And so the big takeaway and how we can really think and conceptualize about the real estate game is that each of your towns are individual. And with each of your child's communication system, they will also be individualized. And in addition, maybe what you have in your town is going to be much more important to you, so therefore it's going to have a higher real estate value because it's going to be in your town. Whereas your child's desire to talk about something that is on your town may not be as critical or of high value. So therefore, thinking about how we can strategically set up the communication system so that we're really putting in the time and the effort for things that your child wants to communicate, and thinking of the value related to that. With a communication system, it's your unique voice, and just the way I say something, I may express the same idea, but Erin's going to express it maybe in a slightly different way. Our voices in themselves sound very different. And that's what we truly want to individualize for your children, is that all systems are, as long as they're working, are wonderful. And if we need to tweak things, we just need to think about constantly assessing and creating that motivation. For some kids, they may want to talk about Ninja Turtles forever, but when Ninja Turtles fall out of favor, maybe we don't keep that as a top activity priority on their page, kind of looking at that way. So really try and find the voice that works for your child and for your family, Family is hugely important in this because you're going to be supporting their communication, which is what our next presentation is about. And try and think about what access to language functions your child can get to. And if it's all just requesting, maybe thinking about what else can you start to look at to model for your child to show them how they can do more than just that.
Yep. Okay, so obviously we're a very interactive duo. So this is the time that we would love to, I know this kind of puts pressure on you, but that's okay. We would love to know anything that you just took away from our brief thing that we just shared with you. So what have you learned about why we communicate? If anyone's willing to share, we would love to hear your voice.
And we will have questions in just a minute.
Yeah. Anybody? None of you learned anything? Oh, no. Epic fail. Oh, there we go. We got one.
So I learned, or I think it's more of a reminder that there are various ways to communicate and reasons to communicate, and that you need to reinforce all of them, or kind of beyond requesting, or even. So I think it's about kind of a constant reminder that there are multiple reasons to communicate, and how we can better engage our angels, and kind of, asking more questions, for example, because, that's something that we started doing is, having her ask more questions. Then that's something that you don't think about initially.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Anybody else?
Got a couple more.
I think to show like expression and feelings, at least that's what I hope to be able to accomplish with my son.
Nice. Absolutely. That's a good one.
I think I saw a hand over here.
You guys talked about how everyone communicates differently, and one of the speech pathologists also was mentioning that to us. And when you're looking at all these AAC talks, they're very different. How are you supposed to be making like a good decision for your child? Is it trial and error, or is it different?
Mm-hmm.
Just really trial and error kind of deal? Or?
It can be. It's and I know it's frustrating when we say it's so child dependent and so context dependent for that family, but it truly is. So sometimes kiddos, I know the previous speaker, I think she was talking about dynamic evaluation, which is something that we both do. We also do diagnostic evaluations too, and I don't know if she spoke to kind of evaling over time. So I personally, as a AAC therapist, really like diagnostic AAC because I get to see a kiddo for several weeks in a row, and we trial all different types of systems, high, mid, and low tech, depending on where they're coming in at. And so I personally like that, and it is a little bit of trial and error. The other thing that we're moving towards with different kids is kind of doing that in conjunction with, if we have a robust school program, we kind of trialing, and you can speak to this because I know you're just putting this in place, trialing some different things, finding what we think is the best fit for right now, and then if the school program has access to that particular device or system or whatever, we're giving that kid then like another 3 months within an environment that's pretty natural. I like to say that, like, again, that we think we're pretty great, but I see a kiddo once a week for an hour and it's not the most naturalistic setting. That just isn't. It just, but a school setting or a home setting where they can get to practice it kind of with different activities or across different, with different people is a nice way to kind of conclude, oh yeah, this is a really good fit. Okay, let's go through funding or let's make another decision. Does that kind of get at, or what else did you add to that?
And I would also say that, again, going back to the family unit is going to be so critical because, yes, we want to individualize it for your child. At the same time, if it is not a system that the family can functionally figure out for whatever reason, then it's not going to be functional for that child. A child doesn't want to be any different. They want to speak and talk like us. And therefore, the more that you can use whatever system your child has access to, you'll probably see them learn to use it faster because that's what you're showing is accepted. So I would go to that too. What I am really looking forward with these kind of 3-month trials, and this can be in addition to not only your school system, but as well as the different device companies, have different rental programs that you can go to through your insurance, where you try the device for 3 months at home and really see, is this something that you can wrap your head around so that you can get your child to the right communication, I think is another big piece to that. Great question. So then, should I go back to my question or should we? Yep. Okay. So we have one more slide. I have a question to address, and then we're going to open it up to questions.
So we just wanted to give you these 2 resources. This communication matrix, I love it. It's one of my favorite things. It's an online tool. I'll just kind of read this to you. Online tool to assess early communication skills or to use with anyone that has communication skills outside of speaking and writing. I think it's a wonderful tool. It's free to anyone. You don't have to be a speech therapist or an occupational, you don't have to be in the field to, you can make a quick profile. It's easy and free. I love it. I think this is an example of you kind of go through a series of questions and you just answer them. The other thing about the communication matrix I like is it gives really solid examples of actual kiddos doing requesting or, you know, a multimodality approach. So if they're requesting with the point versus requesting with the word, it just gives you some really solid, nice examples of things that you can then really answer the question and best fit for your kiddo or for whoever. You can do it with an adult. It doesn't have to be a child. Whoever you're kind of going through. Yeah. It really, I think it is.
Communicationmatrix.org.com.
I think it's in our resources. We can, yeah. The one other thing I like about it so much is that you set up a profile for an individual, and then you can go through the questions. That take a little while. It's not lengthy, but it is a little bit of time to answer the questions. Like I said, they give really good examples, and then it makes this beautiful chart of like, oh, here, the blue is like, oh, they've mastered that skill or that language function. Here's some areas where they're emerging, and here's some areas of growth that we can definitely address. The thing I like about it is that I used to use it in IEP meetings, so I would give it to a kiddo, and then I could ask, you know, update it in 6 months or in a year or whatever, and then it shows nice progress. I think it's so visual and easy to understand. The language is very accessible for anyone. Like I said, you don't have to be a speech therapist to understand how to go through it, and I found it really helpful for IEPs and re-evals and all those things where we needed to have an assessment tool that was really matched better to the kiddo. That's what I liked about it, and I think it's a very accessible tool. So that's their whole goal, is so you guys can access it as well.
Absolutely. And just to reiterate too, it's looking at all the ways your child communicates. So body movements, it's looking at sounds, eye gaze,
Pointing.
all the different ways that your child may be communicating. And also this may be a great way to look at, is your child communicating differently at school? And maybe looking at what kind of expectations that your school team has, so then that you're all on the same page about, oh no, we're really expecting our child to point every single time, and making sure that then they're being consistent across places and environments. Really quickly, I'm going to jump back to a slide to clarify. There we go. When it comes to the development of communication functions, I had a wonderful question asked while we were circling around about what does that progression look for an angel? And what I would really love for you to take away is that we're looking at these just as a next step. So really early on, we would love for your children to be requesting, protesting, but then not getting stuck there. Really looking at continuing your child's communication to commenting, requesting, and using other forms, directing, will be after that. And so regardless of where your child is developmentally, it's more looking at always exposing your child and then having the expectation of your child to learn these different functions because they can and they will with the right supports. Would you? All right. So it has been a pleasure speaking with you all. We hope you really enjoyed today's presentation. We do have our contact information available.
Right website for it.
Yes, and we're going to pull up the communication matrix. We have our references here. We'll be happy to make these slides available as well. And we would be happy to answer any questions. Do we have?
We have just a couple of minutes left before
Okay.
you go into your next presentation.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So we do have some time for questions.
And we're going to pull up the website as well.
Yeah, it's communicationmatrix.org.
It's communicationmatrix.org.
Okay, so my son is 14, and this is just now introducing this to him, January. And what I'm worried about is he's pretty like persistent, like he can do signs, he can point to pictures when he's expressing what he wants. I'm afraid with the actual device, do you let them have it all the time? Do they walk around with it? Because he also has a tablet that he uses to pretty much play on. So, I mean, I would be afraid that he would use that more of a plaything, or do you take it, or how do you introduce that?
So I would say for especially introducing a tablet to a child or young adult, that you do so strategically. I would continue to give them access to their leisure tablet, and if possible, have a separate tablet for communication, which you truly refer to as their voice. And depending on the tablet, you have different ways of locking the application so that your child won't be able to access anything else but the communication app. And I think that will be the first step to ensuring that your child will have not the association that it's a leisure device, that it truly is for communication. And then looking strategically at, yes, giving them access to the device as much as possible. And then if they're really motivated by their leisure tablet, maybe having that as an option for them to request using the communication device, so that then they can say tablet or want tablet, and then they get to have their free time. Did that answer your question? Do you have any other strategies?
I think about it different ways. So sometimes, because it can kind of seem like you're going to be drinking from a fire hydrant with AAC, that's what I find when you first get a device. You're like, whoa. So sometimes I tell families, you can also pick routines or activities that you already kind of have in your schedule that you can layer the use of that into. So that you're not creating a whole new, like, you're thinking like, oh gosh, I have to figure out how to incorporate this across my day now. This is kind of tedious or whatever. I always say, what do you already have in place that we can use and have communication in, and then you can model in that and have an expectation in that. And then you can always expand that across a day as well. And partnering with the school team to make sure that there is cohesive vocabulary use across. I have heard several times, which I would like to address this with some of you guys, find me later, why schools are having different separate two vocabularies with kiddos. It's kind of stressing me out a little bit. So I might come back next year and just speak on that. But that's the other big thing with getting that device, is making sure that everyone is supporting a similar system, so they're not having to have, like, one language at home with a system and a different one at school. That will cause a breakdown. If you did that to me, I wouldn't like it. So I can only imagine your child wouldn't like it either.
It's the equivalent of having someone take all of the buttons off of a keyboard and rearranging them.
Yeah.
And then you're used to typing with one keyboard at home and then a totally different keyboard at work.
Yeah.
It would kind of drive you bonkers.
Yeah. So I would say that's another big piece of that.
Making the consistency is critical.
Yeah.
Are we?
I know.
Well, it's also up to you, because you can just transition into your next one. If you want
It's true. Yeah. Do you guys want to?
I was going to say, we don't want anyone to feel trapped in here. If you'd like a break, please feel free to get up and move around. That's always welcome. And then if we have more questions about this topic, we'd be happy to answer them, and then just plan to start in like 5 more minutes. If that's okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So does anybody else have any questions? We can also make ourselves available at the bottom of the stage.
And we can just talk there.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Erin, thank you so very much for that presentation. That was wonderful.
I knew that was going to happen, sorry.
Some challenges today, aren't
I know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure. I think one of the takeaways that I had about the why of communication is to be connected. So our kids really want to be connected with each other, and I think that's one of the things that we can use in terms of communication to connect our kids to ourselves and connect them to the larger community. So if you want to take a break and get up and walk around and come on back, we'll learn about the how of the communication. Thank you.